Hey guys, welcome to another video. So if you're in the market for a road bike, you've probably noticed they're pretty expensive, and it may have led you to look through some of the alternatives, so maybe something from a Chinese brand. So I've actually ridden a Chinese bike from VeloBuild for 2 years. I raced it all across North America in some of the biggest races in North America, and yeah, it was pretty good. I enjoyed the bike. I now ride this Cervelo, not because the VeloBuild bike tried to kill me, but just, yeah, I wanted an upgrade. And it is true, a nicer bike is nicer. So the Chinese bikes, they're not as nice. Well, at least the cheap ones aren't as nice as a nicer Western brand bike, but they still will get the job done. Anyways, based on my experience with the VeloBuild, I think I'm in a place where I can potentially offer some advice to anybody who's looking to build a Chinese frame and save some money. So I see the market kind of divided into 3 different price tiers. So the first tier is the cheapest tier. In here, you'll find brands like VeloBuild and potentially other factories selling directly to consumers. This tier is typically around $500 to $800 US. Then the tier above that is the more established brands. So in here, you'll have brands like Winspace, Yolio. These are well-established, reasonably well-established brands. Actually, the wheels on the Cervelo are Winspace wheels, which I do enjoy quite a bit, minus when it's raining because the braking surface in the rain is terrible. Not really a problem if you're on disc brakes, but on the rim brakes, yeah, it's not the greatest. Anyways, this second tier is probably around the 1,000 to 1.5K. And then the third tier above that is the ultra premium Chinese brand. And this tier is kind of 1.8K and above, and you'll find brands like Trevelo, Quick Pro, and Sika in here. And they're still a good bargain compared to the mainstream brand. So if you're looking at something like a Specialized Tarmac, not even the S-Works one, just the regular Specialized Tarmac frame set, it's still gonna run you like 3 to 3.5K US. So yeah, you're still saving money. Anyways, let me get onto my computer and we'll dive a bit more deeper into these tier lists. Okay, so to start things off, let's take some benchmarks against some of the mainstream brands. So here we have a giant TCR Advanced Pro disc frame. This is one of the cheaper options from one of these mainstream brands, and it's gonna run you around $2,100 US. They don't list the weights on here, but from looking around on the internet, it seems like it's around 800 grams. And I know people have moved on from weight and all they care about is aero nowadays, but yeah, I still care about weight, so I'm gonna talk about it. The next thing is the Tarmac SL8. This is probably one of the more popular bikes in North America. So it's 3.5K US, and they actually do list the weight here, 780 grams. But this is well regarded as kind of one of the best all-round bikes out there. And it also tests well in third independent party tests. Okay, so let's take a look at what the tier 1 offerings are. So here's a couple that I find interesting. So the VeloBuild bikes. So the VBR 177, like I said, I've had a VeloBuild before. The Fredworks was a VeloBuild, and yeah, it did me pretty well. So for $399, you're getting a 920 gram frame, so it is significantly heavier, but you're also getting a bar and stem, which is quite nice. And another nice thing about these factories is you can actually customize it, so you can say exactly what your bar stem combo is that you would like. Yeah, and moving on from that, we have the SP Cycle 2025 new R088 carbon road bike. These names are kind of hilarious. This one is $478. It does not come with a bar and stem, so you'll have to sort something out yourself there, but it is a bit lighter. Where was the weight? So it is a bit lighter, coming in at 780 grams, so in line with the Specialized, and obviously for a lot less price. One thing you'll notice is it does look a lot like the Specialized. One thing that is different is the Specialized has the speed sniffer, so if I go back to their tab, see this kind of sticks out here, but both the VeloBuild and the SP Cycle, yeah, it doesn't have a speed sniffer sticking out. And then the SP Cycle, it does have a nice little cutaway here for the rear wheel. You'll see the VeloBuild, it's more of a straight edge there, and I guess that's part of the reason why it is cheaper. And then the third option is this Seraph brand green paint superlight disc road bike frame TT-X X68. It's quite a mouthful. Yeah, but it looks a lot like the Specialized Tarmac. You see it does have the speed sniffer. It comes with a handlebar, so bar and stem you can choose. And yeah, it looks a lot like the Specialized Tarmac is all I can say. But it is heavier, and for $720. So one thing to note is when you're building up these kind of really cheap frame sets, it's not that they're not structurally sound, but there's going to be little things and problems you have to work through during the build process. So you just have to be aware that the build process is probably going to require a bit of tinkering, and you may have to be a bit more mechanically inclined and be able to do some problem solving on your own. Okay, so we'll start off the second tier with the Yolio R12 disc. So this is definitely an aero-focused bike. It's going to be pretty heavy, so let me scroll down. It's 950 grams, so quite heavy, but it is fully aero-focused. And also you should note this is Canadian dollars, so this is around $1,000 US. And the paint job, it looks pretty nice. Personally, I'm not a fan of the actual shape of the frame, but I guess that's personal preference. I do think the paint that they offer is quite nice looking though. And I see a couple Yolios around Vancouver and people do seem to like them, and yeah, definitely a quality brand. And then moving on to what Windspace has to offer. So this is also another pure aero offering, so 900 grams, but $1,400, and this is US dollar. We're back into US dollar, but yeah, this is a full aero offering. And Windspace is in an interesting position where they offer some of the cheaper options, but also some super high-end options as well, which we'll get to later on. And then another option that Windspace sells in this kind of price bracket is their original T1550 frame set, which is $1,290 if you're getting the disc brake version, and $1,049 if you're getting the rim brake version. But this is definitely more of an all-rounder than the C5. It's a bit lighter at 880 grams, but yeah, it's looking like a pretty good bike, and a lot of people on my old team, UNC, used to ride them, and yeah, they seem to enjoy them. So once you're getting into this kind of level of frame, I'd expect a lot less troubleshooting to have to go down during the build process. So if you're less mechanically inclined, this may be a better option for you. And also there's a bit more customer support from these brands. So if you do run into issues, there's more likelihood that there's someone who's going to help you. And also because they're a bit more popular, there's also more likelihood that you can bring it into a mechanic and they'll be more willing to work on it. Because sometimes mechanics, they straight up just refuse to work on unbranded Chinese frames. Okay, and now getting into the high-end Chinese stuff. So this is the exciting stuff per se. So we got the T1550 Windspace second generation frame. So this one is gonna weigh in around 850 grams, but this is their newest frame. So, you know, all the bells and whistles of a new frame. So 50 grams lighter, more stiff, you know, everything everybody always says about their new frames. And moving on from that, we have the Quick Pro AR1. Now we're on Panda Podium because this is probably the easiest place to find the more expensive Chinese stuff and like the really high quality stuff. But this is $1,900 US, and it's 780 grams. So pretty much the exact same specs as the regular Specialized Tarmac. And yeah, it looks pretty similar to the Specialized Tarmac as well. And then kind of, I think this may be the most expensive frame set that they have on Panda Podium, and it's certainly interesting to me, but the Trevello Aero road bike, the ultralight edition. So it's 100 grams lighter than their standard edition, which is putting it probably around the 800 gram range. But yeah, super expensive. So as expensive as you can get. All right, and to summarize everything here, I have a couple spreadsheets for you guys to look at. You can feel free to pause the video here and take some screenshots, but basically these are the frames, their weights, the fork weights. Some of these are estimates and the costs. And then I also have some notes here on if they were on sale, and then tire clearance. A couple group sets that I'm personally interested in. So the L2 R9 2x11 disc, the ERX, so this is the L2 electronic disc group set. This one is actually super interesting to me, mainly because it charges via USB-C. I really want to get my hands on one of these. And then a wheel top EDS group set, and then a Shimano mechanical group set as sourced from AliExpress. And for these group sets, the weights are just for the shifters, the derailleurs, and the disc brake calipers, so not any of the drivetrain components. And then a couple wheels, which I also find interesting. And I've combined these all into a master spreadsheet here, and you can essentially do your own bike builds in here, and you get kind of like a base weight and a base cost for wheels, group set, and frame set. You have to remember you have to add a lot of other things onto here, and some of these frame sets, they come with handlebars, not included in the weight, but some of them come with handlebars. But you also are going to have to add something like chain rings, cassettes, disc brake rotors, saddles. So all of that is not factored into these weights here. So let's just look at a couple of these builds which I find interesting. So this is the cheapest option that I think would be a good suitable starting point for someone. So the VBR 177 combined with the L2 R9 2x11 disc group set. Alternatively, if you can find Shimano, any kind of Shimano secondhand or SRAM secondhand group set, you may be paying around a similar price. So that could also be worth looking into. And then combined with Elite Edge wheels. And then you're looking at a total cost of $1,370 US, and only 3.5 kilos, so not too bad. The second option is this is like a middle of the road option. If I was going to do a new kind of China bike build, this is probably the build that I would be looking to do. So it's the Ceracycle. It's the lightest frame set of those tier 1 frame sets. It's a bit more expensive than the Velo build. And then I would want to combine it with that ERX group set. Not really for lightweight or anything, but I'm just super curious to try this Chinese electronic group set. And I'm really excited that it has USB-C charging. I don't think anybody really understands how much I love just only having USB-C chargers. Everything I own is USB-C charge. In fact, I even upgraded from the Garmin 530 to the Garmin 540 just because of USB-C charging. So that's how obsessed I am with USB-C charging for some reason. And then the Elite Edge 50 wheels, I think, yeah, they're pretty much good value for money. So I would want to include those as well. And you see it's pretty much the same weight as the Velo build, but you are getting an electronic group set. And then it's more expensive. And then this last option is kind of if I didn't really have too much concern for money and I wanted to build like a full out aero spaceship. I think the Windspace C5 Aero, out of all of the frames available, it passes the eye test as the most aero frame. I know you can't see aero. I'm no Jesse Coyle if anybody watches the Nero show, but I think if Jesse Coyle were to look at this frame set, he would see it and he would say it was aero. Yeah, and I would pair it with the ERX group set and then the Far Sports S6 wheels. Those are available on Panda Podium. And yeah, it would be a lot more expensive, a bit heavier, but like a full aero build. So those are my thoughts on the Chinese frame market and kind of what I find most interesting. Other sources of information you can look to are cycling forums. So Chinatown Cycling Forum is a really good source of information for this kind of stuff. And also before you build any of these frame sets, you should look at that forum and look for YouTube reviews of the frame sets. Because like I said, with the cheaper frame sets especially, there are sometimes some issues during the build process. So you just need to look at those issues and decide if it's worth it for you and if you're able to mechanically overcome those issues. And another thing is, if you're just new to cycling and you're not mechanically inclined at all, and this is going to be your first bike, yeah, maybe it's a bit too much of a project for you to build something from the ground up. It's easier than it seems, but it can be daunting at first. I was once in those shoes as well. For people like that, it may be better to look at the secondhand market. So the Cervelo S5, I bought that secondhand and it cost around $3,000. I bought it all in parts and built it up, but yeah, all the parts together cost $3,000 Canadian dollars. I'm in Canada. I don't know what that is in US dollars off the top of my head. And then a third option is just buying from a bike shop. At the end of the season, there's normally some decent sales just because they're trying to get rid of the stock from that year to make room for new stock from next year. It's not the end of the season right now. In fact, it's the start of the season. But right now, one of the local shops, Beachy, they have a really good deal on a felt road bike. That's definitely a good value offering. I would recommend. I did work at that shop. They don't sponsor me right now. But yeah, I did work at that shop last summer, and they have supported me in the past. But yeah, it's a good deal. So I definitely recommend going to look at that. Anyways, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time. Oh, also, one other thing. You should probably comment and like. That would be really helpful because I do want to get one of those ERX group sets, and if my videos get 500 views, there's no reason for them to send me one of those. So hopefully you commenting, liking, maybe even rewatch the video so I can get another view, so I can get my hands on one of those ERX group sets that I so desperately want to try. All right, see you guys next time.